Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, The Story of How I Got Out of a Bad Car Loan. This is the story of how I bought my car a little over a year ago. I had recently returned from working overseas and had been shopping around for about a month. I found myself at yet another used car dealership, and on a whim, I test drove a vehicle that cost more than I was hoping to spend. Being young and dumb, I also let slip that I was looking to finance. I didn't really need to get a car loan. I just didn't have any credit at the time and was hoping to build some. This becomes important later. Well, wouldn't you know it, I was in luck. They could work out the details of the loan for me right there at the dealership. And they would even include an extended warranty bundled in. I know, I'm an idiot. Being inexperienced as I was, not to mention sleep deprived, I was working nights at the time, I skipped along and signed on the dotted line. I just wanted to get out of there and get home to bed. After a good day's rest, I picked through the paperwork more carefully. The more I read, the more embarrassed I felt at what a sucker I was. Severe interest rates, bogus fees and overpriced warranty and gap insurance nonsense, I had fallen for all of it hook, line, and sinker. The next day I stormed back into the dealership brimming with youthful bluster born of my embarrassment. Now I'm not a big guy, but I can have a big mouth if the situation calls for it. I also had a full mohawk at the time, which probably added to the effect. I went straight to the manager and called him out on his shady business practices and general lack of moral fiber. Naturally, he was very offended that I would dare make such accusations. He was, of course, a most honest businessman who had been clear and straightforward all along. I had the paperwork from the beginning and chose to sign of my own accord. This last part, at least, was true. Still, he didn't like it when I pointed out that me being stupid enough to fall into his trap didn't negate the fact that he was offering a predatory loan in the first place. I wasn't arguing the terms of the loan, I was coming straight for his personal character. Manager man was starting to get emotionally worked up too now. He was gonna prove this whiny louse wrong. Not only was he not crooked, he was so magnanimous that he would even let me out of the loan. All I had to do was write him a check then and there for the full value of the car. Now here comes the revenge, I said, okay. His eyes got big. It was clear he wasn't expecting this answer, wasn't expecting some punk kid who had already signed up for extortionary financing to be able to pony up that kind of cash on demand. But thank God, the one not stupid thing I had done was make sure I stuck to getting a car I could pay for in full just in case. It was too late for him now, though. I had called his bluff. Once the words left his lips, he couldn't renege without fully admitting I was right about his being deceitful. Without another word to me, manager man called somebody over to take me elsewhere and work out the details. Somehow, despite having already signed my soul away, I managed to further talk my way into getting a bunch of other nonsense fees waived. They definitely didn't have to do this, which leads me to believe that, they were sick of the yelling mohawk guy and were just ready to be rid of me. B. There was even shadier stuff than predatory lending going on, and they knew I would call them out and could put my money where my mouth was. Or, in a very distant third place, C. This other guy the first was talking to recognized the fees were BS and was trying to do right by me. I came in a little later that day to drop off the cashier's check. Manager man was still fuming. When I put the check on his desk and asked if everything was in order, perhaps a little too gleefully, he wouldn't even look at me. Just pursed his lips, nodded and stared blankly at his monitor. I picked up the title from the front desk lady, whom I had always been very polite to. She seemed to be sharing the schadenfreude of my getting one over on her boss and shot me a knowing smile. I know I was naive and careless getting into such a quagmire and that I am lucky things went the way they did. But when I get behind the wheel of my very own car, I still find her smirk creeping across my face. The next one is titled, I Just Wanted My Driveway Back and My Dumpster Left Alone. Let me say this up front. I am going to use very vague details as I don't want to give away too much info and my lack of knowledge of events outside of my control. I just wanted my driveway back. Backstory: I have a dumpster on my driveway that I'm using while I renovate my home. There is just enough room for me to park my truck there at the end of the night. Over the past few weeks, a man I'll call Dasso keeps parking in front of my dumpster and using it for his needs. I have asked him many times to stop. This has led to him going out of his way to just be a general a-hole to everyone in the area. So I put up one of those signs about parking and getting towed at the owner's expense, yada yada. Took pictures of it and generally did everything I could to cover my butt when I had this POS towed. Events till now, so I had this man's car towed away, and of course, he called the cops talking a lot of bullshit about how this was illegal and just throwing whatever garbage he could to muddy the waters of what was really going down. The police took my side as they had been informed ahead of time about the tow. I called them first to let them know what was about to go down. During this convo with the cops, the man was being very dodgy with answers about himself. This struck the officer as being a little sus, but he had no reason to press the issue yet. Dasso, however, gave the officer reason just a few moments later when he reached into the dumpster to grab an empty paint can to throw at my truck while the officers sat in the patrol car writing up an incident report. Not sure if he didn't see them in the car or was just so mad he just didn't care. Either way, this leads to him being cuffed up right away. He refused to answer any questions at this point and was led away. I never saw the man again after this. What went down after the can toss? Well, the man's real identity was found out. Turns out this guy was a sex offender that had been on the run for years. Using fake names etc. Not only that, but my house and his both are less than 100 yards from the school. My house is right across the road from the main drive into the school parking lot. This is a no-no for sex offenders. Turns out the man still had a lot of time left on his original charges that he was now on the hook for, and that was before all these new charges he is now facing even come into play. I don't have a whole lot of details about what he's facing as I just moved here about 5 weeks ago and don't really know anyone to get the info or even how to go about getting it. My last home had a website that I could go to and see who was arrested and what for, but this town lacks that, so I'll have to wait for gossip to reach my ears. Dasso, dumb-ass sex offender, is in his upper 60s and had almost 15 years left on probation or parole still before he bounced and started hiding out. So he will be almost 75 or so before he sees the light of day again, and that's before any new charges get tacked on. Not really sure how it all works. The next one is titled, "Use Up All the Gas in the Tank." Well, I'll show you. This happened years ago when I was still a teenager. I had my first job after high school. The only drag was I had to share a car with my brother. I worked early morning 7 a.m. to about 4 or 5, and my brother worked evenings and overnights, so the car sharing worked well except for one thing. My brother had the habit of using up all the gas in the car every single night. I would get ready for work and he would pull in quite often just about the time I needed to leave to get to work on time, jump out of the car and zip inside. I would get in only to find the car was running on fumes, so would stop and fill it on my way to work to make sure I made it. After weeks of this going on, I figured out the gas usage and the mileage to work and how much I needed to get there and back. So the next morning as I pulled into the station, the guy asked me, "Fill it right?" As I was there every day, he recognized me. I replied, "Nope, just $2 today." So off I went to work and got home, and there was my brother tapping his foot as he wanted to go out with friends. I jumped out and beat it inside. No less than 30 seconds and he comes storming in the door demanding to know why there was no gas in the car and didn't I put gas in it this morning. I told him I was tired of filling the car every day and yes, I had put gas in. He then demanded to know how much. $2, I told him. Meanwhile, my dad was sitting at the kitchen table listening and asked me if I really only put $2 in. I told him I was tired of brother joyriding all the gas out every single night, so I only put what I needed in and he could then buy his own gas. My dad erupted in laughter while my brother sputtered about how was he going to get anywhere. Dad told him I had finally outmaneuvered him and he better pull up his socks and learn from this lesson. I never got the car with fumes again. The next one is titled, "You Should Have Just Paid for the Dress." This story is of an ex I used to have. The ex is not the one I got revenge on. She was a lovely woman and nothing bad to say about her, we just didn't work out. Let's call my Mrs. Jada, she's black, and I'm white. Well, Jada wanted to do a photo shoot with us, so she went ahead and bought 3 very nice dresses with the intent on only using them for the photo shoot and then reselling them. I was told she paid anywhere from $80 to $150 per dress depending on the dress. Not to keep this story short, I'll skip over a lot of the boring parts. We did the photo shoot and she turned to Facebook Marketplace to resell the dresses. She sold 2 of the 3 dresses with no issues. The 3rd dress was another story. Apparently the woman she sold the 3rd dress to refused to pay. Yes, that's right, Jada sent the dress to the buyer without payment. This woman, let's call her Ashley, said the dress was not as advertised, didn't fit, etc. Jada told Ashley, hey, that's fine, just return the dress, no harm no foul. At this point Ashley blocked my missus. Keep in mind this is over $50, and from what I was told, $50 for a dress worn only once like this was a really good deal. This really bugged Jada, which in turn resulted in me getting annoyed. So Jada asked me to reach out to Ashley. When I looked up her Facebook, I also felt like she might block me too, and I saw she listed her husband, who was a soldier in the army. I decided before I would message Ashley I would add her husband as a friend, and I also wrote down his name in a note-taking app I had on my phone in case Ashley blocked me. I got Ashley to respond, and the result was the same. I ended up blocked. Now at this point I'm assuming that this is a simple case of females acting crazy, and I'm thinking a quick message to her husband would resolve all this. Did I mention by the time this had went down he had accepted my friend's request? Boy, did this person have a lot of personal information on social media. Folks, this is a tip, don't do that. Let's call this soldier Sergeant Johnson. I message Sergeant Johnson and I explain the situation, and we have a bit of back and forth. I tell him that I think we can sort this whole mess out. The choice is simple: 1. Return the dress. 2. Send us $50. Now as I'm messaging him waiting for a response, I go through his page out of boredom. And holy duck, was this a goddamn gold mine of anti-Semitic viewpoints, straight-up racism, celebration of the white race, comments on news articles about black individuals being charged in crimes. On how America would be better off if we split into 2 countries, one for whites, one for everyone else, blah blah. Now he's responded. Basically he's saying duck off in a nice way. He doesn't want to be bothered over a dress. I decide before I respond I'll screenshot his Facebook profile. It was really helpful that not only did he list his employer as US Army, but also the unit he was in. I also screenshotted like 6 or 7 different very racist posts he had made. I messaged him back and I told him he needs to do what is right, he needs to pay for the dress or return it. That he needs to do what's right or it's going to cost him. He tells me his wife doesn't wanna pay a black girl lover any money and that they are burning the dress because a black woman wore it. Now I'm fuming. At this point I know what I'm going to do anyway, but I tell him very plainly, you are going to pay me for the dress, or I will forward screenshots of your Facebook to your unit. He blocks me. At this point I know I'm not going to get the money, so I inform Jada of the news. She's mad, but I tell her I got an idea. That Monday I call up his unit and I ask to speak to the commander, whose name I found on Google. I get put through the commander secretary and I inform the secretary I have evidence that an NCO within the commander's unit is a proud white supremacist. The secretary takes down my details and says the commander will reach out to me. Later that afternoon I get a call back from a captain. Let's call him Captain Jack because that sounds like a cool name. His actual real name sounded Jewish to me, but I didn't ask. Captain Jack and I have a conversation. I explain that I discovered this soldier on social media. We had a bit of back and forth. He made racist comments about me dating a black woman. Plus in the short period I was a friend on his Facebook page, I was able to screenshot several posts of incredibly racist viewpoints. I could tell Captain Jack was taking this seriously. I don't think any commander wants a white supremacist in their ranks, especially with one that has authority such as an NCO. Captain Jack asks me if I would be willing to forward over the screenshots. I say I got them all saved in a folder and I'd be happy to forward them on over. No, I did not bring up the dress issue. I felt like if I did bring up the dress issue with the captain it might muddy the waters on my report, plus it's only $50. Captain Jack thanked me. That afternoon I went to the ATM. I pulled out $50 and went home and told my missus they had finally paid us. That way she'd get off my back. She thanked me, called Ashley a witch and went back to watching her TV. About 6 weeks later, if I recall, I get a call from a JAG officer. For those of you who don't know, JAG is basically an active duty lawyer. The JAG officer asks me if I'd be willing to answer some questions in regards to my report. I say of course. Answer the questions. I ask the JAG officer what's going on and I get the response I was hoping for: "I'm sorry, but I can't discuss an ongoing investigation." It sounded like he had a smile on his face. We both knew what that meant. Now I have a friend who was in the same unit. I fill him in on what's going on, and ask him that I'm curious on if anything happens. Several months go by, and one day I get a call from my buddy. "Hey, you know that Sergeant Johnson?" I go, "Yeah." He laughs and goes, "He's not a sergeant anymore, he's not in the army anymore, he's been kicked out on an other than honorable discharge." I go, "Did they say why?" And my friend tells me, well, he didn't get an official reason. Right after he was kicked out, the unit had a briefing on racisms within the ranks, how to report it, and a lesson on what you can and can't post on social media. For those who are concerned about my safety, this event happened at an overseas duty location a few years back. Also at the time I was working as a civilian on a different base. I used my military mailing address to mail the dress to them. So when they got the package, all they knew was my mailing box info, and I also know when he got kicked out he'd be sent back stateside. So I wasn't concerned about him finding me or doing something to me. The last one is titled, "Went too fast for customer," so I slowed down just for her. So this actually happened last night. I have recently had a shit storm of a week and I was on edge, and I get into work. I work at a certain generic Mexican restaurant where you walk down lines and create your burrito or bowl as you go. I'm online, which means that I'm the person you go to and I make your food for you and then ring you up unless someone takes register. We're broken up into two areas. We have the wells, which are where we have rice and beans, meat, quesos, and soup with some grilled veggies. Then we have sauces, which has all kinds of hot sauces you can put on, corn salsa, pico, lettuce, the gist basically. Now, when you get this job, it becomes mind-numbingly easy after about a month and you get it all figured out, and I can get someone through the line within 5 minutes, cashier taking the longest part. It's not hard to get through quickly and to make sure I have the customer's order right if they actually pay attention. So, obviously, COVID. We aren't allowed to serve anyone who doesn't have a mask on. So this woman comes in on the phone, which ducks customers who do this, by the way. And she's got her mask pulled below her chin. I ask her to put it on, she rolls her eyes and does so. I also want to preface that I am hard of hearing. If you speak up and pronounce your words, I'm good. So she starts with mumbling her order to me and then loudly talking to her husband on the phone. I ask her to speak up. She wants 2 nacho bowls. All right, I put in the cheese, get her rice and beans done, then we move to the meat. Like I said, I've had a real shit week at this point, and my ability to cover up this and be a polite sugary sweet server is fading quickly. And she yells into the phone, "Oh, you want ground beef?" And turns to me and says, "Put on some ground beef and then steak on that one, I guess." I do so, and get them all the way to the next area. I'm actually going slowly today because of her behavior, and at this point I probably would have had at least 2 people out and could have started cleaning line. I'm naturally fast and I'm trying to get her out quickly because it's 8:30 p.m. and I want to clean. She tries to talk into her phone and just looks at me and says, "God, I can't breathe in this," and takes off her mask. Again. I tell her she has to wear them, I'm not allowed to serve her without one. She again rolls her eyes as hard as she can and puts it on and grumbles to her husband about stupid regulations. So, she's taking forever. This is going the pace of a snail, and she won't even talk to me or speak up except to yell into her phone. And I'm asking her what sauces she wants when she interrupts me to yell into her phone, "Oh, you don't want ground beef?" Well, she already put it on. This girl is going too fast. And she says it in the most sarcastic voice I've ever had a customer use, so I ducking snapped. I immediately dropped the spoon, and decided I was having trouble with her bowl. It was stuck to the counter. Oh boo. She asked for pico. I kept dropping the ladle and would dig through the bin to find the most perfect scoop. She wanted lettuce. Well, I might as well arrange it leaf by leaf on each of her bowls. Onions? Let's just be safe and not spill anything. I tell my coworker that I'll ring her up and I slowly pick out the most perfect bowl lid, make sure it's securely on her nacho bowls, because we only want perfection for her. And then ring her up for every single thing she has on her bowls. Usually, if customers are nice, we only charge by meat. But she was charged for every single thing on her bowls. Then she randomly yells to me while I'm slowly typing in everything that she wants some sides of sour creams. I tell my coworker I've got it, just clean up. And I make her the most perfect sides of sour cream I possibly could and took my time with it. Then she asked for guac, so I made sure, as to not make a mess, to grab half scoops at a time. Finally, she's paid for close to $25 worth of food because she kept asking for sides. I managed to slowly get her receipt and then bagged all of her items, making sure I had only the best napkins and forks for her, of course. Then smiled at her and said, "Have a nice night." She scowled and left. You'd think after me dragging my feet and grinning like a maniac from behind my mask she'd be sick of our crap and just leave, but nope. See, we had run out of all of our fried products that night, meaning no tortilla bowls, no tortilla strips, and most importantly, no chips. My manager said don't give chips out to anyone in person, we need them for our online orders, and I had told this lady that I can't give her chips when we started her order, but she seemed to have not noticed. So she angrily calls my manager and demands we bring her chips and that we forgot half her order. My manager had seen this whole thing and had been laughing the whole time, but now he's sick of dealing with her. Finally this woman comes back and she walks in, shocker, without a mask. And she yells at us from the door to bring her the chips. My manager just tells her to leave and she can grab them if she has a mask on. She yells at us, asking if we really are gonna make her go all the way back to her car. He just says, "Yup." She is livid at this point, and she stomps back to her car, obviously yelling obscenities, and comes back about 2 minutes later. So when she came back in and was standing at the counter yelling for her chips, I decided to make her chips. I made sure her chips were perfect for her and scooped her chips in, and then packaged them, just so. Before I walked it to her around the cash register, and handed it to her and smiled, telling her I hope she enjoyed our service and have a wonderful night. Thanks for listening.